Hello everyone, my name is Jason and I am an ISFP. You are watching my ISFP journey. Thank you for watching. Do please consider subscribing if you have not already, and if you would be interested in donating to my cause here, what I'm doing, please click on the link in the description that will give you the opportunity to do so. My wife and my youngest daughter are currently making some desserts, so if you hear some blending, banging, whatnot in the background, that would be them in the kitchen working away at making some desserts. So that's a good thing, even though it might make some noise on the video. So some time ago, I had made a series or begun a series about the shadow functions of the ISFP, and I kind of got away from it. I made a video about extroverted feeling, I made one about introverted sensing, and then I stopped. Partly because I lost interest, and partly because I found that it was not that important. I have really been narrowing down on the idea that one of the best things we can do to grow as people is really focus on understanding our first four functions and how significant they are, the roles that they play in our lives, the way that they dictate our thought processes and our actions, and then how we can grow them and better ourselves through doing so. So I kind of got away from really focusing on the four functions that the ISFP does not have in their primary function stack. But someone asked me recently how I saw extroverted intuition showing up as the, quote, trickster function or blind spot for the ISFP for myself. And so I thought I'd go ahead and take some time and kind of talk about it. Now, if you look at the socionics model, then for the ISFP, extroverted intuition is the polar function, the point of least resistance. So you could think of it, another term that is used in somewhat quasi more MBTI community is that of the blind spot or the trickster. And I really like this concept of blind spot. So if we're going to focus on the shadow functions at all, then what you would do for whatever type you are, is you would look at your third cognitive function in your main stack. And so like for me, that's introverted intuition. And the opposite extroversion, introversion of that function becomes your blind spot. So for me, extroverted intuition becomes my blind spot. So my view on extroverted intuition has changed dramatically over the last couple of years as I've learned to appreciate the other personality types more and more and more, and learn to appreciate what other people have to offer, especially those things that I myself don't have to offer or am very weak at, or in this case, basically blind to. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about how I historically and traditionally viewed extroverted intuition, even though, or even before I began studying personality type and cognitive function and even knew what extroverted intuition was. To me, extroverted intuition, if I go back many years ago, I would have described those people who were displaying the characteristics of favoring extroverted intuition. I would have described those people as flaky, as flighty, as sort of a blowing in every direction kind of people. Now, that's not fair, and I don't believe that way anymore. I would no longer characterize high extroverted intuition users in that way, but that's the way that I used to see them, and I believe that that is the way many people do see high extroverted intuition users, especially the ST types are going to see that extroverted intuition, and to some extent us SF types as well are going to see that extroverted intuition as being a little bit not anchored. It's kind of, I've described extroverted intuition before as having your feet firmly planted in midair. Here's the problem for someone like me when it comes to extroverted intuition. I, with my introverted intuition, naturally want to drill down on an idea. I want to narrow down. I want to find one idea, one concept that I believe to be tenable. Now, here's the thing. My FI must require that I value the idea. My SE requires that there be evidence in the physical world for the idea, and my TE wants to make sure that the idea works. But my NI is saying we just need to pick one idea, one path, one concept, one future, stick with it, drill down on it, be committed to it, and move on. Extroverted intuition does not want to be limited to one idea. It wants to constantly be seeking new ideas. And so for someone like myself, I would historically drill down on an idea and say, okay, this works. I see evidence for it and I value it. I'm done. I don't want to think anymore about any new ideas, especially as it pertains to this one realm. So when I see people who are, well, here's a great idea, and they carry it for a while, and they're like, oh, but here's another great idea, and they carry that, and they're bringing more and more ideas into their their known commodities, and yet still never deciding, still never saying, okay, I found the one that I'm going to, plant my flag in and say, this is my idea that I'm going to be committed to. The fact that there are people who won't commit to an idea, won't stick to an idea, won't take ownership of an idea and ascribe great meaning and value to it, but are constantly looking for new ideas, that to me looks flaky or flighty. It looks like a person who can't make up their mind. It looks like a person who's saying, I believe this. And then 10 minutes later is like, no, actually, I believe this. And then 10 minutes later is like, no, actually, I believe this. And so historically in my life, I would look at people who were high NE users, even though before I studied personality type, I wouldn't have even known what that was. And I would have said, well, they just, they're like a rudderless ship. They're just being blown in all directions. And I would have seen those people not only as flighty, but often as rather useless. I would have looked upon them as being not able to really provide any great benefit because they can't commit to a life path or an idea or something of that nature. But I have learned that is an unfair way of viewing extroverted intuition for a few reasons. So I want to talk about some of those reasons. First of all, we all have an extroverted observing function. Mine happens to be extroverted sensing. So I'm not going to go to, go experience one thing and then be like, okay, I'm done. I never need to experience anything else again. I've experienced the one thing that I need to experience in life. Well, that's kind of what I was doing with my introverted intuition. Like, okay, I've got one idea. I don't need any more ideas. I never need to look at another idea again because I've got my one idea. That's nonsense. So we all do extroverted gathering. We all go out and take in the extroverted world. And we all look at things on a spectrum. So extroverted intuition is looking at ideas on a spectrum from, they're going to find those ideas that they throw out and say, well, these are clearly, not tenable ideas, all the way up to a multitude of ideas that are possible and considerable, up to ideas that they commit to. But in addition to that, the other thing that's so beautiful about extroverted intuition is that it doesn't limit its possibilities. See, I realize, and I have come to realize by not only having more people in my life who are strong users of extroverted intuition, but also valuing those people, valuing what they have to offer, opening my eyes to what it is that they have to offer. What they have to offer me is possibilities that I want to shut out. I don't want to be burdened with the possibilities, but the question is, what then am I missing out on? What possibilities do I miss out on if I drill down on my one little idea, my one little life plan, my one little path? Now, there is a right time, a right place, and great value in narrowing down, because eventually you do need to decide. Eventually you do need to say, okay, I'm going to move forward with this. It is good to commit to an idea or commit to a plan or commit to a concept. But we can become so overly committed to our one plan, idea, concept, whatever, that we close off our minds to other possibilities, and then we miss out on things. The high NE users in my life have, over the last few years, helped me because I finally opened up enough to allow them to help me. They've helped me to see possibilities that I otherwise could not have seen. There have been times in my life that I have been stuck in a rut and I couldn't get out, and I was scared to get out. And the idea of getting out of that rut was uncomfortable to me because I had become comfortable in my narrowed down idea, my narrowed down path, my narrowed down concept. And when the NE users in my life finally helped me to break out of that, I have found so much joy. I've found so much new possibility that I never would have experienced if I hadn't been pushed by the NE users. Now, I will say that extroverted intuition users, if you're out there and you're dealing with someone who is who lives in the land of introverted intuition, you have to be cautious because you can overwhelm them with your multitude of ideas and personality. And possibilities, sorry. So it may be a wise idea, ENFPs, INFPs out there, ENTPs, INTPs. It may be a wise idea for you to spoon feed your extroverted intuition possibilities and ideas into the mind of the high introverted intuition user, because if you just vomit out your multitude of ideas and possibilities, we're probably going to be like, whoa, you are freaking me out. I can't handle all of that. But if you can introduce it in a controlled manner, you can so broaden the horizons and the possibilities, broaden and brighten the future of the people who are stuck in their NI narrowed down way of doing things, way of looking at things, so on and so forth. I am a person who, to a large extent, likes to fall into an NI box. Just like in a recent video that I made where I talked about INFJs and INTJs, and I talked about how they can get into an NI box, which is just like, no, this is my one idea, and this is my one way, and this is my one concept, and this is my one future, and so on and so forth. I'm guilty of that too. I do that all the time with my NI. I'm like, I just want to find my one idea, my one path, so on and so forth. Now, I want to SE, take in all sorts of physical, experiential data and influence, sometimes for the sake of supporting my NI idea, and sometimes just because I'm addicted to gathering in the physical world. So I love to gather in the physical world, but I do not love to gather in new ideas per se. I don't necessarily love to gather in the multitude of concepts or the multitude of possibilities that are out there. I just want to be happy in my one little narrowed in way of doing things and be like, okay, I'm good, but what am I missing out on? So you ISFPs out there, or any of you who have NI in your top function stack, surround yourself, if you can, with some people who have NE, especially those who really thrive in the NE world, because they can broaden you. They can open you up to new possibilities you may have never dreamed of. But you NE users who have NI users in your immediate sphere of influence, first of all, go easy on them with your ideas. It can be overwhelming, especially, like for myself, having it if the socionics model is correct, having it as the polar function, kind of like my most blind to function, that's not even on my radar. The idea of taking in a whole bunch of new ideas is not on my radar. So if you come at me with all of your ideas, I'll be like, back off, you're crazy. But you can help the NI users in your life to break out of that a little bit and begin to not only gather in the physical world, but gather a little bit more in the abstract world too, to which there is great benefit. I was blind to extroverted intuition because while you have to go out and take in new ideas, you have to gather new ideas before you can narrow down on one. But the blindness that I experienced, and still to this day, to a large extent experience, is not that I don't realize there are new ideas out there, and not that at times I don't gather in new ideas, but I just want to gather in just enough, and then I can narrow down on it and be like, yeah, no, this doesn't work for me. I don't value this. I don't see any sensory evidence of this, so I'm throwing this one out. Okay, now I'll go try one idea over here, and I'll examine it for a while, and I'll go, nah, this doesn't work in the physical world. I don't see sensory evidence for it. I don't value it. I'm going to throw that out. And then I'll take one over here, and I'm like, ooh, I see a little bit of sensory evidence. Okay, I think it works. It seems to work, and I really like it. Okay, this is mine. This is my NI new idea. This is my NI path. I'm done. I don't need to take in any more ideas. I don't need any more concepts. I don't want to think about any more possibilities. I've got my one. That's where NI can go wrong for the ISFP. And it can go even worse than that for other types who have NI higher. I think they can do that to a larger degree and be even more addicted to just wanting to quickly hone in on one idea. But for me, it's not the absolute worst aspect of my personality. Like, it's not the one thing that I am the most like crazy about, but I do it. And I do like to just be done thinking about new ideas and new possibilities. Now, just real quickly, I want to kind of tell you how I think this plays out a little bit. When I was about 8 years old, decided I wanted to be a jet fighter pilot. And that was it. I didn't want to take in new possibilities. I wasn't interested. That was it. All I could think about was that. I had the whole plan. I was going to go to Oklahoma University, and I was going to transfer to the Naval Academy and try to become a fighter pilot. Okay? Then, when I was about 10, my parents divorced, and I got in, or 11, and I went through kind of a dark time, and I got into music a lot heavier than I had ever been before, and I became a drummer, and I was like, this is it. I just want to be a drummer in a heavy metal band. That's it. No other possibility. That's my only possibility. I don't want to think about it anymore. I didn't dream of anything else. I didn't imagine anything else. I didn't sit around going, oh, or I could do this. Oh, what about this? My future could be like this. No. It was one thing. I only had one possible future, be a drummer in a heavy metal band. That was it. Then, a few years later, I got into ice hockey. And then I played ice hockey right up until the point where I got married. And that was it. That was my whole life. I was on the ice constantly. I played for 2 different teams. I usually had a practice and a game, or 2 games or 2 practices every day. Even in the summer, I played all year round hockey. That's all I wanted to do was play hockey. I had no other dreams, no other ambitions, no other goals, just one: hockey. And the thought that there would be a person in this world that would go, oh yeah, I could be a professional hockey player. Oh, but you know what? I could also be, a drummer. Oh, but I could be a pilot. Oh, but I could do this. And like, to sit around and imagine different possibilities. Why? Why would you want to do that? Just narrow down on one and be all in. And then somewhere along the line, I decided more than anything else in the world, I wanted to get married, and I did. And then when we started having kids, that pretty much narrows you in. Whether you want to dream of a million possibilities or not, you are now locked into one very real possibility. You are now dad or mom. But the extroverted intuitive, the person who's going to use extroverted intuition, is not going to want to narrow down and lock into one idea like that. They're going to want to constantly be dreaming of the different possibilities. And the higher that extroverted intuition is for them, the more they're going to be sort of enamored with the idea of gathering in new ideas and gathering in new possibilities. But that is not the case for the ISFP. And it is not going to be the case for the NI users, all the more so the higher the NI is in their function stack. I hope that you found this to be informational. Please leave me comments. Let me know what you think. And please do subscribe. And again, if you have any interest in supporting me financially, there is an opportunity to do that in the description below. Thank you so much for watching and have an awesome day. Bye now.